Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is the style guide. Actually, I think I'll go to, can everybody read that okay?
Yeah,
Should I
Yep.
go bigger?
a bit bigger probably.
Okay. All right, so this is divided into sections by the main things that we encounter that are problems. Um, the first part is about formatting, essentially, italics, bold italics, underlining, and all caps. The main kind of formatting like this that we use on the web is italic. The other ones we don't use so much. And um, if you want to emphasize something, you can indicate that to us in your text, either by italic or some other way, but we may change it. Um, so you use italics for book titles, for the titles of things, titles of movies, titles of artworks, songs, articles, um, anything that is something that was created by somebody. If it's a building or uh, a place or something, you don't have to use italics for that. It's mainly just titles of things. Um, we use italics for special words within a quote or a conversation. We use, and here's an example. When I say legit, I'm being sarcastic, he said. So the word legit is a special word that we made italic. You also you should italicize foreign or words from another language. So for example, this is a story about El Salvador, and the women seamstresses are called costurera. Um, and so both the word for the seamstress and the army that was attacking them are in Spanish. So avoid using bold and bold italic, except except in specified headings. And don't underline anything except active internet links. This is really important. The other thing that's kind of critical in using these things is to be consistent and sparing. Um, but let us know if you really feel like a word needs to be emphasized. We can deal with that. So capitalization is pretty clear. I think not too many people have a lot of problems with this. I think the one thing that we encounter a lot is random capitalization of words, where you think like it's important to say the title of the person that, or not necessarily the title, but like somebody that you think is important that you want to emphasize that person's name or position or whatever. Um, these are the main ways to think about capitalization. One is for proper nouns, and it needs to be a proper noun, not just like, for instance, if you're writing about the Vancouver City Council, you would capitalize those three words. But if you're just referring to the city council, or if you're talking about city councils in general, you don't capitalize them. We see a lot of people that are going to school and getting degrees and things like that, and the the name of the course is a proper noun, but the basic realm that the course is in, like physics, is not a proper noun. And they may do differently in academic circles, but this is the rule that we're going by. And then a lot of people capitalize seasons. You don't do that unless it's part of a title. If it's in a title, then you would. But so the titles of people, President Mary Baker. If you put the word president before her name, it's capitalized. If you put it in commas after her name, it's not capitalized. This next one is a little tricky, but we get a lot of stories about a particular group or a particular event, and it's nice if you capitalize the references to it so we know that you're talking about the same thing throughout the story, and that's fine. But if it's just a generic reference, it should not be capitalized. And then I struggled with this one a lot. Directional versus regional areas. It was hard for me to come up with really clear examples. But generally, directions are not capitalized, but regions are. Cynthia?
Well, I think for us to note, you would capitalize the west of West Vancouver or West End, but you would not capitalize the west of the west side of the city.
Right.
We have a lot of wests and norths around here. North Van and
Right.
heading north, right?
Well, and if you're referring to the Great White North, then that would be capitalized too. So, any questions about this so far? I can't see everybody, so if you're raising your hand, maybe Lori, you could help me. I don't know if you can see everybody either, but all right, moving on.
Dawn,
Go
I just
ahead.
want to confirm that you're going to be sending this style guide out to us in
Yes,
Word
I
or
will.
okay,
I will.
fantastic. That's
It's also in the how-to instructions folder on the Google Drive.
okay. Thank you.
So here we go with commas. So you use commas to separate items in a series, but one of my pet peeves is the Oxford comma. A lot of people learn that when you do three things, you don't put a comma before the third one. But now it's important, it's recognized because of various legal cases that you need to have a comma before the and the last item in the list, because otherwise it looks like it goes with the one before it. And it can be pretty critical in a legal sense. Most of our writing isn't like lawsuits or anything like that, but if you said I leave my fortune to my daughter and nurse, and the nurse is a different person, and the daughter considers herself the nurse, you have a legal problem. So, and then compound things like ham and eggs is a unit on the menu. So you would keep that together without the comma between the ham and the eggs, but you would keep putting commas if there are things after that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just a list. So this is the one that everybody is talking about, connecting independent clauses. What's really important to note here is that the clause that's after the conjunction needs to be an independent clause. If it's still about the thing you were talking about before the and, or the but, or the or whatever, then you don't need a comma. But if you say the sun was shining, but it was cold in our cottage, those are two completely different things. She's feeling blue, but for me, it isn't easy being green. Two completely different things. So you do need a comma there. Is that clear? No. So you have two clauses with a conjunction. If the two clauses are about different things, you need a comma before the and. If they are about the same thing, you're just continuing to talk about the same thing, then you don't need a comma. This is another place where there's a lot of disagreement, but generally when you have a clause that is not essential to the meaning of the main part of the sentence, then you separate that clause with commas. And Marcia, this may be where you're running into some issues with your editor. Some editors don't like that, but I think in this example, my dog, a golden retriever, loves to play fetch. It's pretty clear that you need something there. It's not always that clear.
It's generally speaking, it indicates a pause.
Yes.
So you read it, my dog, a golden retriever, loves to play fetch. So you know that it has to have a comma on either side.
Right. Yeah. Apostrophes, I don't want to go into and then the introductory phrase or clause, I think was it Garth that was referring to this? I think it was. You do put a comma after that. Apostrophes are not a particularly hard thing, but the thing that people do the most wrong is they put for a decade, they put an apostrophe before the S. So like in 1990s apostrophe S, that's not how you do it. You just put an S. And there are two kinds of symbols. One is called a tick mark, which is used for inches and feet. Be sure you use the squiggly one. And if you see that it's a tick mark, if you just highlight it and type the apostrophe key again, it will change it it should change it to the other kind. Does that make sense?
No.
So if I had a tick mark, which is just a straight line down, instead of the curvy one. So there's a right hand and a left hand apostrophe. The left hand one, the dot is at the bottom. The right hand one, the dot is at the top. A tick mark is just a straight line. So if it's a tick mark, you know, we probably don't need to worry about this too much. We can do a search and replace on these. But if you notice that on your computer, you're getting tick marks all the time, if you highlight that tick mark with your cursor and then just type the apostrophe key again, theoretically, it should change it to the other kind of apostrophe. It's handy to know. And apostrophes show possession. Most people understand this pretty well. If a name ends in an S, it still gets an apostrophe S if it's a single person. But if it becomes too sibilant, it's fine to just not do the S. So the example is Tom Dawes's book is better than Tom Dawes's book. But with collective possessives, there should if the collective possessive is already got an S, you don't need to put an S after the apostrophe. If it's a word that means multiple people, like women, you do need an apostrophe S. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on semicolons. I don't like semicolons. I would encourage people not to use them. They get misused. This is another one that is very much like the comma. It needs to have an independent clause. If the words that come after the semicolon are not an independent clause, it's not appropriate to use a semicolon. And independent means that it can stand by itself. It could be its own sentence. And actually, a lot of times when people use semicolons, I think it's better to make two sentences. It doesn't change anything really. In fact, it's a little bit more of a full stop than a semicolon. Okay, hyphens are a lot. And I don't want to go through every single point on this, but when you do compound modifiers, you use a hyphen. So a working class woman, the post-war era, you would use a hyphen there. My 25-year-old boyfriend became a pole dancer. True story. you know, when you say a 25-year-old something, or when you say put an age to, and there's a word after it, like my 5-year-old daughter, or my 17-year-old chair, that the number and year and old also all have to have a hyphens between them. But if you say he is 25 years old, you don't use hyphens. So it's only when it's a compound modifier. Any questions about that? There's a lot of changing words in English these days. We used to use hyphens a lot more. We're using them less. I remember in the 70s, we always hyphenated anti-war, but you don't anymore, or nonprofit, or cooperative. Those were all words that were originally had hyphens. This list right here of prefixes, if a word starts with any of these prefixes, it's probably not, should not be hyphenated. And the way, what you need to do is you need to go to Google and type the word with a hyphen and type the word without a hyphen and see what Google says. Or, you know, you could use other search engines. It doesn't have to be Google. I'm just using that as an example. When you write out numbers, and we don't do this on the web for the most part, we're using numerals. But if your story is going to be in a book, and it's going to an editor, you need to write out the numbers. They need to be fully written out. So when it's several parts to the number, you put hyphens in between the parts. So 255 all have hyphens. Now there's two other kinds of dashes that we use. One is called an N dash, and it's called that because in original typesetting, it was the width of the letter N, and that shows a range. So if you say we're open Tuesday to Friday with a dash, that is an N dash that you want to use. Same with the range of years. And an N dash, if you're working in Word, the way you type an N dash is you type after the last letter of the word that you're putting in the next symbol in, you would type a space, then a single hyphen, and then a space, and then start the next word. And that will automatically, it should automatically make it an N dash, because that's the default in Word. If you just type, if I were to type 1969 hyphen 1972, it will just be a hyphen. But if I type 1969 space hyphen space 1972, it'll put an N dash. Got it? So that's a range. So it shows like a beginning and an ending of the extremes. The third kind of dash is an M dash, and it's called that because it's the width of the letter M in typesetting. And this is used for like a parenthetical phrase. You could use a parenthesis instead if you want, but it's a reference to something that breaks the main thought in the sentence, but it's important for the understanding of it. And this is an example. The bigger march, the one down Davie Street, encountered resistance. So the way you type an M dash is a little different, but it's similar to the N dash. You type space, two hyphens. Oh, I'm sorry, no space, two hyphens, no space. So that will automatically in Word make an M dash. I'm watching this pretty closely. Sometimes it doesn't work when people do this. And so, you know, it's something that I just have to pay attention to as an editor, and I will change it if it's wrong. Yes, India.
Stylistically, I just find that kind of parenthetical phrases break up your writing. And if I were editing my own work, I would just say the um, the bigger march down Davy Street, or the Davy Street bigger march, or something. I mean, if I were editing some people's work with this, I would tend to take out the dashes.
Yeah, it's very popular these days to use M dashes. So we'll probably see it more and more. But it's up to the writer and the editor and the author to work that out. I'm starting to go over my time here, so I need to go through this a little more quickly. Quotation marks. In Canada, I think a lot of times people put punctuation outside the quotation marks. And I guess to me, it's not that important. But if you're putting it outside quotation marks, you should do it consistently throughout the whole story. And my training and the stuff I learned about it is that the punctuation goes inside the quotation marks unless it's not related to what's being said there. So do you understand do you understand what I mean when I say I'm done? The question is not about I'm done, it's about do you understand? And when we're doing conversation in our writing, each time a speaker changes in the conversation, you make a new paragraph. Ellipses. The only thing I want to say about ellipses is that people usually type the dots all together. They need to be separated by spaces.
Oh.
And if you send anything to a book editor, they will ding you for that. These abbreviations are pretty obvious. I don't think we need to go over that. For the website, generally we're not putting periods in abbreviations, but sometimes you need to. So you just got to do what you think is right. And we don't use ampersands. Please don't use ampersands unless it's a trade name or something. Numbers are complicated and there's a lot to go over here. I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this. Generally for the web, we spell out 1 through 9 and then always after that use numerals. And that's the same for percentages and for money and for pretty much dates, times, data, ranked lists, phone numbers. We use numerals on the web. For books, you generally spell things out. And same with percentages. Ordinals should always be spelled out. So don't put 2 ND for second, spell out second. Okay. So I've already mentioned some of these. Don't indent paragraphs. Don't put 2 spaces after a period. Don't use bold or all caps, or use it sparingly. And provide your image separately, not embedded in the text file. So I want to go through this advice quickly, and then we'll stop for a little while. I think it's really important to develop this sense, like I said, of something not being quite right. Did I spell that right? Is that where a comma goes? Should there be a quotation marks around this? You have to have that kind of questioning going on in your brain all the time, and look it up. It's really important. I looked everything up, and I encourage you to look things up. It will save us a lot of time as editors too. And then once you start doing something, like however you've decided to type something, be consistent about it. So you have to remember that you put quotation marks instead of using italic. You have to remember that you're using an M dash instead of a N dash. So be consistent. A lot of problems in grammar are about subject and verb agreement. When you're using a collective noun that is singular, you still use a singular verb. I see these dangling modifiers quite a bit, and so this is just a matter of rearranging the sentence. I like this example. The man was chased by a dog on a bike. The dog wasn't riding the bike, but that's what the sentence says. So just be aware when where you put modifiers. And you know, pronouns are a big issue for us right now. Let's always be sure to use a person's preferred pronoun. But the thing that I see all the time is the misuse of I and me. There are subjective, or there are subject pronouns and object pronouns. When it's an object pronoun, you don't use I, you use me. You don't use we, you use us. You don't use she, you use her. So just be aware. The trick is take out the other person. If you said mom made a cake for Bob and I, if you just say mom made a cake for I, you see right away that doesn't sound right. And Cynthia's favorite thing, avoid run-on sentences, clunky wording. People tend to equivocate when they make strong statements. It's better to make a strong statement. You don't have to equivocate about it. And shorter sentences are usually better. This is Mella's comment. Try to keep it crisp. Cynthia?
I just want to empathize that those of us with academic or clinical training were taught bad writing habits or creative writing.
Yeah.
And we have to unlearn them. Okay. We were taught to write in the passive voice, to sound objective, and to write big, long sentences so that we looked more knowledgeable about stuff. Okay. It's lousy story writing, it's lousy poetry, and it bores people. I have to get over it. Writing a sentence that's just a subject, verb, and an object, I was kind of taught made you sound simple-minded. It doesn't. It makes your writing exciting. Okay, that's it.
I was going to have us go back over the bad example, but I'm kind of going over a little bit on time here, so I think maybe I will skip that. But you might want to go back and take a look at that. I sent you a copy of it, and see how many things are wrong according to our style guide in those 3 or 4 paragraphs. There's quite a few. And maybe if I get through this other stuff and we still have a little time, we can go back to it. We're still in the style guide, and I just want to make this note that the editors of the website have made the decision that we're not going to edit poetry. Poetry is a form where rules don't apply as they do with other kinds of writing, and there's reasons why people don't use commas and don't have certain line breaks or use certain kinds of punctuation. So unless it's just something that just really, really doesn't make sense to us, and we'll have a conversation with the poet, we won't be editing poetry. So it's going to be incumbent upon the author to make sure that they have spelled things correctly and that there are not errors that they didn't intend. Here's a link to a couple of sources that I use a lot the Canadian Style Guide. This is put together by the Public Works and Government Services departments, and it's very, very comprehensive. It's a little bit tricky to use because you have to look at a menu on the left to try to find what you're looking for, but they will give you every single rule for every kind of punctuation, for every kind of sentence construction. It's really comprehensive. And it's if you are really concerned about it, it's good to look at it and just to check. And this other one is it's kind of a very limited spelling guide, but it's got some of the mostly misspelled words in Canadian, British, and American English. And I like it because it's 3 columns and you can see, you know, which country uses which spelling. But it doesn't have a huge amount of words in it. So if it's not in there, you would have to Google it. And if I was going to Google a word that I needed to make sure was spelled the way Canadians spell it, I would put Canadian spelling of in the search and then put the word. And AI will tell you. This is something I came across recently that I really liked. And I put it in the style guide because I think it's something that people don't realize. They put adjectives in the wrong order when they're using multiple adjectives in a sentence. And this is the order that is most commonly used in English speaking and writing. So, you know, the examples are a wonderful old Italian clock. You wouldn't say a wonderful Italian old clock. You wouldn't say a wonderful clock, old Italian or whatever. No, you wouldn't do that. But so there's a way things sound right to us. And this is the order that they should be in if you want them to sound right. If you have somebody like Yoda who says things in the wrong order, then you don't have to follow this. But, you know, I found this really helpful because I've read a sentence and went, wait, that doesn't sound right to me. So I might change it or suggest to the author that I would like to change it. So that's the style guide, folks. It's a lot of information. Just to kind of summarize a little bit, when we edit stuff for the website, we make a copy of the original that you send to us, and then we do the editing on the copy. We keep the original separate. So if anything gets changed or whatever that you don't like, we can always go back and refer to the original version and see what you did. And we keep both of those on the Google Drive. This is an important thing because if we try to copy text out of Word and paste it into WordPress, there's a lot of coding in Word that kind of messes things up. And Google Docs doesn't have that coding. So it's way better for us to copy the text out of a Google Doc and paste it into WordPress than to copy it out of a Word file and paste it into WordPress. It may not be a problem. A lot of times it works fine, but just be aware that that's why we're doing that. Did you have a question, Val? Oh, okay. Val, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
No, I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, I thought you did. Sorry.
I'm busy writing good to see you, Jan.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jan. So the editing needs to be done before we create a draft on the website. So the document that we have on Google Drive is the one that we like to share with the author to see that to get approval for all the edits that have been made. And you know, you can also do that in Word. If you have trouble getting on Google, just let us know and we can work in Word. But we want to do all of the editing before we put it into the draft document on the website, because then it's a lot harder to do the editing, and then it's not going to be the same as the original document that we were using to do the editing. So yeah, Annie.
Just so I'm clear about the very end piece, when I send an article, I send it, like, say, to Val or to who's ever putting it, since Cynthia lately, which I really appreciate. Whether I send it to the website or to Val for the zine, I send it on Word document in an email and also as an attachment, Word document. Is that acceptable?
That's the easiest thing for me to receive for the zine is a Word document.
Right. Yeah, which is fine by me. And is that acceptable for the website too?
It is. It's an extra step for us as the editors to create a Google Doc.
Okay.
But it's easy. I mean, if we download the Word file, then we go to Google Docs and to your folder, we just upload the Word file and it becomes a Google Doc.
Okay. Because if it's one step easier for it to be on Google Doc, I would just need like a few minutes of instruction, not now, but of how to get it to you directly from Google Doc.
I know people are struggling with it, and I'm sorry that it's been a struggle, but I think if you were to use it more frequently, you would see that it's really similar to Word, and it's easy to use. It's the problem for some people is it's hard for them to make the connection if they're on an Apple device or they don't have a Gmail account. Sometimes it just doesn't work very well. So
which is why I've been doing it the other way. So yeah, but I'm very happy. I have a Gmail account, so I'm very happy to get some basic instructions.
Okay, sure. Cynthia?
Yeah, I would actually prefer people to send me an attached Word file and an attached JPEG file of their image, because even if I have to move other ways to manipulate it, I save it in a way that I remember what's pending and the work that I have to get around to.
Okay.
So the way you're saying, Cindy, is the same way you prefer it the same way as Val does?
To get it as an attachment in an email. Yes.
As a Word document.
As a Word document.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yes, but I would prefer that you not send me and Val the same thing at the same time. Like, if you're going to submit to the zine, send it to Val. If you're going to submit it to the website, send it to me or Dawn or Mela or Val. But I don't want to get things that are for the zine because
it gets confusing.
It's confusing. I don't work on the zine.
No, but
I don't want to be included in communications about the zine.
But it's okay for me to, or whoever, to send you in the same article at the same time, as long as there's separate communications.
I think generally what we're trying to do between the zine and the website is have one editor for the website. So if it's a story that you're not putting in a zine, you don't need to send it to us for the website. Right.
No, but if you want to put it in both editions, you make sure you send it to the separate editors.
Well, everything that goes in the zine will be on the website, because as soon as the zine is published, and we put the entire zine up on the website, so it's duplication.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Good point, Cynthia. That's true. And the reason it would be different on the website is because it would be attached to your name. So it would be a separate story. If it was just in the zine, the person would have to know to go to the zine and look for it. Val?
For me, if you're sending stuff to me, if you send it on a Google file, you add work for me. So it's because the zine is published on Word. It's well, actually, I make a PDF of it, but when I'm working on it, it's on Word. So it's much, much easier
Well,
if
we'll
I
have
get
to
it
work
on.
on you on that, Val, because it's really easy to make a Google Doc into a Word file. But Farron's has had his hand up for a
Just
long
one more
time.
step.
Yeah, well, for us too. Farron?
Yeah, I just needed some clarification on this. With the M dashes and stuff that you were describing, I never use M dashes. I would use a comma,
That's
probably.
fine.
So
You
that doesn't.
you don't have to use them. I'm just
Okay.
saying if you do use them, what the reason you would,
Right,
how
right.
you
And
would do it,
it's good to know. Then you're saying double spaces after each paragraph. Uh, you have 2 spaces after each paragraph that you
No,
enter.
not space, a return or an enter. So it so there's a white space in between the paragraphs.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
you do a return or enter once.
For you as looking at it on your screen, that might be confusing because you won't be able to see where the next paragraph starts necessarily. But if you the default for Word is that when you hit a return or a enter, it adds leading. And so you don't have to worry about it. But yes, if you just do one enter after a paragraph, it should be fine. If you notice that there's no space there, it's just the next line, then you might have to do two. But WordPress doesn't care about that. What WordPress does is each paragraph is its own block in WordPress. So if you hit a return or an enter, it creates a new block in WordPress. And that's really important for how the layout happens. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I was just thinking. I was hearing like 2 enters after each paragraph.
You can do that. It's up to you. If you
No, I
notice
don't.
that if it makes too much space on your screen, then just do one.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
But if you just do one, you're not going to be able to tell it's a new paragraph
Well, that's what I'm saying. Word,
unless you indent.
don't indent. Do not indent. And
Why?
because that doesn't work on WordPress. You can do it for the zine, Val. That's fine, but we're not doing it
I will.
this is for the web, okay?
Okay.
And the thing I was trying to say is Word has a default for when you hit a return or an enter, it adds leading. It's usually like 8 points of leading to the space before the next paragraph. So you can see that there's a new paragraph. You should
Okay.
be able to. If you can't, then just do two. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Lori?
I don't really want to have two instructions for the zine and for the for website. Can we just, I never indent. Can I just leave it as never indenting?
Can you what?
I want not to indent. I never indent. I learned a long, long time ago not to indent, and so I have a habit of never indenting. So
We
can
love
I
you,
just
Lori.
can I just leave it as not? I don't want to have two instructions, an instruction for one thing and an instruction for another.
So
That's my
All of
question.
the
before you
zine
answer,
articles,
before you
all of the zine
answer,
articles.
Val, before you answer, these are things the editors have to do. And there will always be things that people don't do that we have to fix. And it's one or the other. Either we have to fix it if you indent it, or Val has to fix it if you don't indent it. So I think, it makes sense to me to not indent. If you just can't live with that, then we'll have to go in and manually take out the indents. One of the things that I think is good to know is there's a search and replace function in Word. This is really good for when you double space after a period. You can go search and replace period space for the search and period space for the replace, and it will do the entire document in one fell swoop. And you don't have, or you can go one at a time if you want to. This works for other punctuation too. So if you go question mark space space, if you type in question mark space for the replace, it will take out all those extra spaces. But you can't do that with an indent, as far as I know. Yeah, River.
Well, the reason why we ask you to indent and not leave a space in between paragraphs is because the zine
Oh, it takes up more
is
space.
is space, you
Right.
know, concerned. And we try very, very hard to eliminate any extra space, you know, that we can in order to consolidate the zine into something that we can afford to print or can be afforded to print.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
different, you're
that's
not under the same, you know, constraints on the web. In fact, the
excellent point.
formatting of the web is different, you know, so.
Yeah, Janie?
And that also goes for, I guess, dialogue in the zine, because you have to sort of collect it together to make it fit.
Yeah, yeah. You know, in on the website, if if you're adding a paragraph each time a new person speaks, there's a lot of space.
Yeah.
But that's the way our format is set up. So any other questions? Has this been helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you. I was so proud of myself in high school. I always got like 90% in grammar because I wanted to be a writer as a teenager. It took me 50 years to come around. But boy, there's so much I don't know.
Well, and you know, there's just so many dang rules. It's crazy making, I think. English is really complicated as far as that is concerned, and that's why there are these style guides that everybody does, like the government, you know, so that things are consistent. You just can't keep it all in your head. Annie?
Very basic question. You said one space between paragraphs.
One return, yes.
Yeah, thanks.
And Sheila?
I'd really appreciate your sending that stuff to us, because
Okay.
my way of doing grammar and everything has been, well, I read a lot, so it's like I go by whether it sounds right. I was always terrible. I'm a good speller, but a terrible grammar person. I'm sure Val knows that.
You know, yeah, I mean, it's, what was I going to say? Just give me a couple of days to get this stuff all
Right.
together. But I will send out a package of all of the
Oh,
materials
that would
to
be
everybody.
wonderful.
Be great.
I was noticing, I just started reading the Ruth Galloway series of murder mysteries. She's great. I don't know if anybody knows her, but and I noticed in all her books, she just uses one quotation mark for dialogue. She doesn't use two. And I had not seen that before. I actually thought, oh no, am I telling people the wrong thing? So I went back and I looked at a whole bunch of books to see if anybody else was doing it that way. It's just this one particular editor, apparently. So, you know, book editors can do whatever the hell they want, you know, and you know, it's not necessarily the same rules.
Well, Bev is
Adrian?
my primary, oh, sorry.
It seems to me that these people are just trying to make sure their high-paid jobs are guaranteed. I mean, my cynical mind has been going there off and on throughout this whole presentation, which, thank you, Don. To me, it's too fucking irrational to hold in my head.
Yeah, it can be pretty irrational. And
Except
unfortunately, I
that
don't think they get,
you need to take the business of we're being paid really well to do this out, because we're not.
No,
yeah.
no, 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 no. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the editor in the Ruth Galloway book.
Well, and even they don't get paid that much, I don't think. So,
I'm just being snotty.
yeah, well, I know it's really, there's a lot to know and be aware of. So, like I said, the thing to do as an editor and also as an author is to develop that sense of when you need to look something up and then look it up. Okay, Lori.
I just want to say, Bev tells me she's my primary editor, and she tells me my punctuation is abysmal. And I really appreciate this, and I really appreciate you, Dawn, and Cynthia, and River, and Val for all the work you do. It's so extraordinary. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Lori. Cynthia?
Thank you.
One of the most persistent style issues that I have is not putting phrases in the best possible order. After I've written my first draft of things, especially when I'm reading it out loud, I realize that the meaning of what I'm writing would just be clearer if I put things in different order. I account this to my Dutch background hundreds of years ago, Adrian, but I don't know, when they told me that they construct sentences in a different order in Dutch, I thought, oh, that's my excuse. But anyway, I noticed that when I'm editing work for the website, in addition to the punctuation and stuff like that, sometimes that is what I will do because it really clarifies to me the meaning of what someone's trying to get across. And when I'm just switching the order of things, I don't think I'm changing, the intent of your story. But I would recommend it as something that people ask themselves.
Just an ending comment from me. Use active voice. Write shorter sentences. Be prepared to kill your darlings, which means you think that's the most beautiful word, but you really don't need that word. Get rid of it. And look things up. Dates, punctuation, spelling, names, events. Don't rely on your memory. So get out there and write. Write.
And don't forget to write for the legacy zine. We've all got a legacy we're leaving.
We will consider the theme of our Museum of Surrey performance to be legacy, because that's our theme this year. That's the theme of the zine, and why come up with a whole brand new one? Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, great. Thanks for your patience, everybody. I hope this wasn't terribly boring, but
No,
it is
really
kind of a
good.
boring subject.
It was
Boring
good.
at all.
It's good.
Dawn, not boring at all.
Okay, well,
No.
and
No.
I'll send you everything. So
Not at all.
Cynthia, I was talking to Jen Marchbank yesterday on another Zoom call, and she advertised Quirky at Surrey Pride. She mentioned it.
Oh, just another thing about Surrey Pride. We have,